Which up-and-coming AFC quarterback is key to unlocking your FFPC $1 million grand prize? Has TJ Hawkinson fell to a good price in Fantasy Pros drafts right now? And what AFC West sophomore receiver is back on high-stakes drafters' radars once again? Plus, the FFPC almost $500,000 champion, Matt Walters, joins me on location as we talk about the Packers wide receivers, the Chargers running backs, and much more. We've got a great show for you live from Cocoon Brewing in De Pere, Wisconsin, one of the NFL Draft in 2025 hospitality hosts. It is going to be a great show. Matt Walters is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. You're live on location. High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour starts now.
Damn the pressure. I've seen greater men than these lessons.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and FFPC. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and FFPC.
Solace in the scripture. Are we not all our father's sons? I became a man. Nobody ever told me what a man was.
Thank you, Rob. Greetings and salutations for all of you Balkaholics tuning in tonight. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, presented by myffpc.com, myffpc.com. That's the Fantasy Football Players Championship. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman, and my guest co-host tonight is the almost, as I teased before, we'll get into that as the show goes on, $500,000 winner and co-owner of tonight's live on location broadcast here in De Pere, Wisconsin, a Jordan Love Hail Mary throw away from Lambeau Field. It is Matt Walters, the co-brewmaster, co-owner of Cocoon Brewing. Matt, welcome into the broadcast. I should say, welcome back to the broadcast. Not your first rodeo here, my friend. How you doing tonight?
Great, man. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been a while, but I'm happy to be back. Glad you could make it.
We're going to talk about your story here in a little bit. We're going to talk about the story of Cocoon Brewing in a little bit as well. In addition to that, we're also going to talk about whether there's a hidden surprise in the Green Bay Packers backfield this year. We're going to talk about whether you should be hopping aboard the Marvin Harrison hype train and much more. If you want to connect with us on X, please do so. I'm at Eric Balkman. The show is at HSFF Hour. The FFPC is at FFPC. Of course, check out my normal co-host, FFPC's Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at kffsc.com. And by the way, Bull Rush main event division going off Sunday night. Sign up now, register for that, and hop aboard the KFFSC, second only to the FFPC, and maybe on the same level as the FFPC going forward here. So sign up for that right now. HighStakesFantasyFootball@gmail.com is where to send your emails. If you have any questions for us or for Matt or for whoever that is going to pop on the broadcast tonight, send them in now. We'll try to get to all of them in the chat room questions, the X posts, and much more in our fantasy feedback segment later on in the show. Thanks to our audio engineer working remotely tonight, my best friend Bryce, and our producer and mutual friend Rob. Don't forget that the Fantasy Pros Players Championship, the FFPC Superflex Best Ball Championship, and the FFPC main event, not only filling slow drafts every day, filling live drafts every day, and they are lightning fast. If you sign up for a draft, there's only 5, 6, 7 people available. Boom, that is going to fill up very, very fast. One of the things we're most proud of this year, and one of the things that's been happening more so in 2024 than has happened in previous years, is how fast these drafts are filling up. So if you want to draft and you don't want to wait, myffpc.com is where to go for that as well. Matt, let's get into it tonight as we bring you aboard to talk about why we're here tonight. This is on me that it has taken till August 9th, 2024 for us to be here because I've dragged my feet. I've been trying to work out something here that would work out, and now here we are. August 9th, 2024, doing a live show at Cocoon Brewery in De Pere, Wisconsin. Tell us the story, and I know that you had brought this up to me when I got on premises tonight. You guys actually did not win the $500,000. You and your friends, graduates of Lawrence University in Appleton, Wisconsin, my hometown. Tell us the story of what happened, because I think you were leading it going into the final week, right?
Yeah, we sure were. It was nice to see the $500,000 winner next to our names, but it's not exactly true. Yes, we were leading going into the last week of the season, and then as I'm sure many people listening will remember, the famous Alvin Kamara game where he scored 6 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And he buried us. If he would just would have had a great game, like a 4-touchdown game, I think we still would have been fine. But that was not our luck.
Yeah, well, it wasn't. But I think the thing that resonates, like a lot of people in your position would have like, screw this, I'm done with fantasy football. I'm never playing again. You guys have had the opposite take because you have a big Labor Day tradition every year, right?
Yeah, it's 3 of my buddies from college. We all get together and we've split a team in the main event, now for, at least I think 5 years now, maybe 6. And certainly that 1 year was our best rodeo to date, but we actually did. Yeah, we just got right back up on the horse, and you got to kind of hit lightning in the bottle, but I think we have a pretty good plan, and we all sort of take pieces of it apart, and then we chat and fight amongst each other endlessly until draft day, and then even straight through the season.
I think that's one of the things I always bring up every year. It's one thing to try to get on board for the playoff challenge with 3 other teammates, 3 other co-owners, but to get on board with 3 other people for a season-long thing, that can be cantankerous at times. That can be a situation where I don't want to say friendships are ended or friendships are strained, but how do you guys work through that? If let's say you're dead set, like Puka Nacua is our guy this year, and then somebody else is like, nah, screw that. We're off Puka Nacua. We're all about the Garrett Wilson train. How do you guys work your way through that when you co-manage the same team?
Yeah, I think we're still massaging that technique a little bit. There have been some new ideas that have come to the fore this year. We were talking about maybe having giving each guy sort of veto round through the draft. Like you can veto rounds 1, 4, and 8, 12 or whatever, and then the next guy gets vetoes in 2, 9, and etc. But in general, we kind of do a democratic process, vote amongst ourselves, and generally speaking, we're reasonable guys, and we'll listen to some stats, or so there's a compelling reason to go with one guy over another. At least we sell ourselves a story and move on,
Which is the way you have to do it with 3 and you've been drafting with those 3 guys for 2 decades, right? This
before the FFPC, we were all in, the same sort of, hometown leagues together and in separate leagues. And actually one of the guys that's on this team together, he sort of created the best of the best fantasy guys, where I would pick 3 guys who I knew were really good at fantasy, and he'd find 3 guys in DC, and then another guy would find 3 guys in Chicago, and then that kind of fell apart. We just decided we're going to just do this sort of every year at this point.
So this was 2019, right? When you came so close, right?
Yeah, it was that. Well, it was 2020, I guess. It was the COVID year,
right? So one of the things I remember, and I talked to you about this off air before we came on tonight. I remember you said, "Hey, I know you're a craft beer fan. I'm opening a craft brewery in Green Bay area. Be on the lookout for it." And I said, "Okay, yeah, totally, I will." And then I forgot about it for years. And then I came up here and this is not something that I'm just doing for Matt's benefit tonight. I came up to De Pere, word of mouth, say, "Hey, you got to check out Cocoon Brewing in De Pere." Again, for our national viewers tonight, very, very close to Lambeau Field, very, very close to Green Bay. And I tried the beer here, IPAs. I had a stout, sours, immaculate. Like, God, this place is great. And then it struck me a few weeks after I'd been there. I'm like, God, this is Matt Walter's brewery. This is the one he told me about that I had to come to. And I have been nothing but thrilled with it. And clearly, a lot of people have been nothing but thrilled with it, given your affiliation with the 2025 NFL Draft, which is going to be held in less than a year in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Tell us how Cocoon Brewery and the NFL Draft became quasi-partners, basically.
Yeah, we're very excited. We don't know a lot of details yet because the NFL is working on everything, of course. But yeah, we've blocked off the whole week to host whatever events that we can during that, leading up to the draft. And then I think we're going to do a little party for some of the specific NFL people that Sunday after the draft as well. So once they've done all their work and they can finally relax, they'll be able to come here and hang out that night. But yeah, we're talking about, getting big screens in for the draft. We have our little Cocoon cabins outside, and they all have, individual televisions where you can get a group together and watch the draft with people. The Cincinnati fans can be in one cocoon, and the Philadelphia fans can be in another one. We don't have to all watch it together and throw food at each other.
I remember when I went to the NFL draft in Chicago, however many years ago it was, myself and a few of my friends who might even be watching tonight, the Dizzle and Two-Packer, we went to a bar grill in Chicago that ended up being the Ohio State party that night. So we had, and I'm forgetting because they're kind of all out of the league right now, but I know Ezekiel Elliott's family was there. There was a linebacker and a safety who were there. Maybe Mike Doss. I could be misremembering this, so don't quote me on it. But the families for a lot of the Ohio State players that night who went in the first round of the draft showed up, and it was an awesome party. And if that's anything close to what you guys are going to have, that is going to be a fantastic place to be. Cocoonbrewing.com, by the way, if you want to check out the actual cocoons that people are able to rent out, not just for NFL draft night, but anytime, especially if you're holding a fantasy football party, that is the place to go. And I think that's the thing to understand here is what you guys have done from not only a craft brewery standpoint for the pinnacle and the taste, the flavor, how good these beers are. You guys offer a lot of ambiance, a lot of different ways to unwind and a lot of different ways to party here at Cocoon Brewing. Tell us about the cocoons and tell us about how the name of the brewery is sort of like butterfly inspired as well.
Yeah, that sort of came out of my brother and I. He's the other co-owner with me primarily. And we were, when we were young, we grew up in northern Wisconsin and out in the country, kind of had to look for things to do. It wasn't all iPhones and Nintendo back then. So we did a lot of butterfly collecting back then. And when you're looking to name a brewery, when there's already 10,000 other names taken, you kind of have to lean on something a little more personal, and that just seemed to really fit.
And
then, like you said, the cocoons outside, these are little cabin buildings that we sort of dreamed up kind of during the COVID time where it was like, what are we going to do? Is this brewery ever going to happen? And they just sort of made more sense over time. It's like, people were social distancing. You could go, with your trusted people and hang out in these little cocoons outside. And they're, they're heated, they're cooled. You can be there out in 10 degrees below zero. They're air conditioned if it's 95 out. They have TVs and music in them. And I mean, people have really taken to it. And it's a blast out there for sure.
I think one of the things to understand here, and I promise you we'll get into fantasy football stuff in a second, but I've been to a lot of breweries in northeastern Wisconsin. You have been to a lot of breweries in northeastern Wisconsin. The cocoons that you guys offer here for sipping great craft beer, kicking back, enjoying some whatever games are on, fantasy football drafts, what have you. This is phenomenal. This is a really, and I'm not trying to sell this place. I'm not being paid to say this. It's awesome. Like, it is a really good place to hang out, not to mention the yard games you got out here right now. I know it's kind of dark. I have the actual brewery like behind me right now. Matt is in front of the tanks where actually the magic is made. So we're trying to bring you into the zone tonight of what it's like being at Cocoon Brewery. And if you're in town or plan on being in town for the draft in Green Bay in 2025, Cocoon Brewery is, how far are you from the stadium right now? Like maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes?
Yeah, we're roughly 6-7 miles away from the stadium. Yeah. But I mean, we got 4 acres of our own land out here. So if you're done standing on top of another person down there, come and enjoy our space a little more.
So let's talk about from a fantasy football perspective, and Matt, this is something I always struggle with every year, or every show, I should say, to not oversell the Green Bay Packers. I'm very excited about the Packers this year. Thank you. My wife bringing me another beer tonight from Cocoon Brewery. I got the Osmatarium. Is that what it's called, Matt?
Yeah, that's a unique one. Yes.
There you go. This is a hazy IPA that I'm going to be sipping on. Very excited for that. So when we talk about fantasy football with the Packers, I think a lot of people this year are definitely in on the offense based on what they saw last year. But let's get down to the nitty-gritty of it. You're seeing it up close, obviously, being a Green Bay resident. Let's talk about the big prized free agent signing, Josh Jacobs, right now. He is a guy who is going to replace Aaron Jones, a former first-round pick of the Las Vegas Raiders. Yeah, he's been dinged up a little bit in training camp. How do you feel about Josh Jacobs coming into the 2024 season? Is this a player that FFPC players should be in business with, or is this a player they should be fading?
I mean, I personally a little nervous about it. And really nothing against Jacobs exactly, but I mean, he's had his issues, and he was, struggled in Las Vegas at times. And I mean, sort of seemed like they just benched him intentionally at the end of the last season. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, he's a fine player, but I don't think he's any upgrade over Aaron Jones for sure. And, just with the variability and all the options they have on their offense, I just can't see it being worth, at the right price. Sure, anybody's draftable, of course, but I wouldn't expect anything major from him myself.
Well, and I think that's the thing. It's like everybody has a price. Like, we know that. I never liked the whole, he's off my board. Everybody's on your board at a certain price, right? And you look at Josh Jacobs right now. Shout out to FantasyMojo.com, at FantasyMojo on X. Darren Armani, the godfather of the FFPC Pros versus Joes. Anytime we cite ADP on this show, it's due to him. Josh Jacobs, over the last 3 days in the Fantasy Pros Championship, running back 12 at the 406. Matt, he is in the whole Rachaad White, James Cook, even Alvin Kamara territory right now. And when you look at Josh Jacobs there, yeah, I can get on board with him, but man, I'm not excited about it.
No, I mean, give me Alvin Kamara every time in that argument.
Over Jacobs. Over Jacobs.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And I mean, obviously Kamara's getting a little older, but what else does New Orleans really have going on down there? And, I don't want to be burned by Alvin Kamara again, so.
So, okay, unbiased. Let's say he doesn't burn you 4 years ago or whatever it was. Kamara is a guy that you're still believing in this year over, because I think a lot of people would say, well, Matt, the Packers offense should be a lot better than New Orleans offense. Why is still Kamara a better buy for fantasy players over Josh Jacobs?
Well, I mean, I think it boils down to really who else is taking opportunities away from Kamara in New Orleans versus what's going on in Green Bay.
Marshawn Lloyd, A.J. Dillon, yep.
Yeah, I mean, A.J. Dillon didn't go anywhere, and by all accounts, I mean, he's down to 4% body fat and, looking better than he ever has. It's not like he lit the world on fire before, but he's still here, and he's still plenty capable of running as well as catching the ball. So, it could be a 60-40 or 70-30 split, and I mean, Alvin Kamara's not going to see that, I don't think. Sure, he doesn't run like Jacobs does, but I mean,
he does.
Kamara can have 3 carries and 11 receptions for 120 yards.
I think that's the thing that we can't forget about is the pass catching prowess of Alvin Kamara, which we know Josh Jacobs can do it, but at the same time, you have Kendra Miller, a guy who's behind Kamara right now, who has kind of been denigrated by his own head coach, right? We haven't seen that in Green Bay with A.J. Dillon. We haven't seen that in Green Bay with Marshawn Lloyd. But this is an interesting conundrum. Let's say you're fading Jacobs, or let's say somebody else drafts Jacobs, Matt, and you want to get in the business of the backup running back. Right now, in the Fantasy Pros Championship, Marshawn Lloyd has an ADP of the 11-10. He is going off the board at running back 48. A.J. Dillon, running back 78 at the 18-12, a massive disparity. And I'm willing to bet dollars to donuts when we see that Packers-Browns game tomorrow afternoon, A.J. Dillon comes into the game before Marshawn Lloyd. How do you feel about being in the business of the backup running back in Green Bay, whether it's Dillon, whether it's Lloyd? How should we handle this in drafts right now?
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I'd be on the Dillon train to this point. I mean, I don't believe in Lloyd at this point. I don't see why we would. What have we seen? So, I mean, I think Dillon had some standalone value last year, too, and with Jones there. And, I mean, if Jacobs is not exactly impermeable to any sort of injury, too, so he could easily go down. And, if it's a Dillon and Lloyd as your only options back there, I mean, I would imagine there's going to be at least a 60-40 Dillon, if not higher.
What about and by the way, we'll pipe this question from the YouTube chat right now. Corey Walters, I'm assuming no relation. Is there a chance that Marshawn Lloyd is going to take over running back 1 in Green Bay in 2025? I would say, based on this contract that the Packers signed Josh Jacobs to, it's ostensibly a 1-year deal. They can very easily get out of it after 2024. If Jacobs isn't what they thought, if Jacobs is looking more like the injured version, the decrepit version of 2023, Green Bay can easily move on from that. And then I think, there's a huge possibility that Lloyd is the number one running back in 2025. However, until I see the pass catching chops at an NFL level, until I see the pass pro at an NFL level, I remain to be skeptical. I'm reminded, I think that when it comes to Lloyd being the starter in 2025, I believe it when I see it. But I think there's a possibility for that right now. How do you see the backfield for the Dynasty owners watching tonight? How do you see the backfield in Green Bay shaping up for next year?
No, I think I absolutely agree with you. I mean, it doesn't seem like the Packers are necessarily enamored with A.J. Dillon, but he's certainly a solid option. And, I mean, for this year, I think he'll be the primary backup. But, yeah, that could get whittled away over the course of this season, and then by next year, all bets are off for sure.
I say this a lot too, Matt, when it comes to what I'm hearing from beat writers and people who are watching the practices. I'm telling people, like, look, Marshawn Lloyd is not the guy coming in when Jacobs goes out. If Jacobs is sitting out of practice, it's not Lloyd starting. It's been Dillon. This is the same thing you've been hearing too, that it's been Dillon over Lloyd so far, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think
it's not his time yet.
Right, and that's the thing. It's like if you can draft Marshawn Lloyd where he's going at right now, that's fine, but be prepared to not being able to start him or have him not being viable in the best ball standpoint until early November, mid-November, because Dillon is basically – they're paying him nothing this year. It's some salary cap loophole that they got him aboard, and he's looked in the best shape of his life, according to the coaches, offensive coordinator, head coach Matt LaFleur. That's what they've said about Dillon. Regardless of whether you think that Lloyd is the better choice in fantasy over Dillon, Dillon is going to wreck Lloyd's fantasy value early in the season. November, December, we'll see what happens, but I am not a fan of Marshawn Lloyd in September and October so far.
No, especially if you have to draft him, 7 rounds earlier or something?
Yeah, exactly. It's what it was. Yeah, Dillon is a much better choice in the 18th round than Lloyd in the 11th or whatever it is. Another contentious position this year, and maybe kind of to a different extent, is the Packers receivers. Matt, when we look at all the different options Jordan Love has at his disposal, I get this question all the time. Hey, Balky, what Packers receiver should I be looking at? What Packers wideout do I need to target in my drafts to make sure I'm hitting on the best possible player and getting the most out of it? And I always say, I don't know. It's one of those things like Jaden Reed's going in the early 7th. Christian Watson's going in the mid 7th. Romeo Doubs, who I think we can agree based on what we're hearing up here, having the best Packers wideout offseason of anybody, training camp of offseason of anybody. Romeo Doubs only climbed up to the early 11th round. You have Dontavian Wicks, the high-stakes darling, going in the early 12th round. I don't know if I have a favorite. I'm going to probably lean on draft pedigree and athletic prowess, and I'll say Christian Watson is my favorite this year. But, man, I can be persuaded any which way. When you look at what the Packers receivers have been doing this year, you being a high-stakes fantasy football savant, how do you feel about the Packers wide receiver situation? Is there one guy standing out more so than the others right now?
I mean, no, I don't think there is. And I guess I sort of feel like it's almost just a complete fade situation because you're never going to – say you had all 4 of those guys on your team, you would never know which one to start. So how are you going to pick one to draft? I mean, right. You could probably wait till the other 3 are gone and draft the 4th one at the cheapest ADP. But, yeah, I mean, I think just the other day at practice, Christian Watson had fell funny and got kicked in the knee, and practice got stopped for 3 minutes while everybody held their breath. And it's I think certainly he's the most physically dominating and great looking pro wide receiver, but maybe a little fragile. And he really hasn't, dominated. And like you said, the other guys have certainly flashed enough where, I mean, I think at least amongst some guys that I know pretty well that talk about these things a lot, I mean, I think we'd all prefer Dobbs maybe over the other guys, but we're like you, we don't know. And
we don't know.
Nobody, I don't think anybody does. I don't know if Matt LaFleur knows.
He may not, and he may like it that way too. He may not want.
I think they do. Yeah. I don't think they want a number 1 really. You can't plan for it.
I think that the thing that it opens up to is, you think about it. Not that I'm comparing Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love, But when you consider how Aaron Rodgers locked on to Devontae Adams, Matt LaFleur had a front row seat to that. I don't know if he liked it. Jordan Love comes in, and he has 5 different, maybe 6 different pass catchers in certain routes. When you talk about the top 4 receivers, Musgrave, and then either Jacobs or Boyd or Dillon or whoever, just hit the open guy, keep the chains moving.
Yep.
All these guys are capable of matriculating the offense down the field. And when you have a situation like that, maybe the thing to do is for fantasy players like us, in best ball formats, scoop up those Packers. Managed leagues, maybe you get Jordan Love, and then that's it, right? And you don't have to worry about which receiver to start on any given week. I think that's something to think about going forward as well. Let's talk about the tight ends here real quick. We talked about the receivers. Luke Musgrave. When we look at the ADP on him, according to Fantasy Mojo right now, Musgrave is coming off the board at tight end 17 at the 1109 right now, Matt. Can you think of 16 better tight ends for fantasy purposes in the NFL right now than Luke Musgrave? I don't know if I can, but then I think about everything we just talked about, how Jordan Love is going to spray it all over the field. Maybe Musgrave is a better best ball scenario for tight end rather than managed leagues where you got to figure out what league or what weeks are going to be his big starts. And Musgrave is a much better best ball guy. How would you handle this for your FFPC main event this year? Is Musgrave a target, a fade?
The Packers' passing offense is just a big puzzle, and I don't know that I want, outside of, say, Jordan Love, a lot of pieces of it.
Right.
Are there 16 better than Musgrave? I don't know. I mean, who knows what Hawkinson's going to be like once he comes back from injury. And, there's certainly guys that are talented, but, Musgrave will have his shots, but when will they come? Who knows?
Right. That's the thing. It's like, if you don't have to worry about it and he's going to be an optimal start in best ball leagues, then fine. But trying to figure it out from a week-to-week standpoint, he's the type of guy, Matt, this year for my managed leagues. I will draft him as a backup. I'm not drafting him as my starter. And maybe that's obvious advice at this point. I don't know. But I can't trust him on a week-to-week standpoint. I only want to deploy him if I have to, not because I have the options.
A bye week fill-in, an injury replacement, that type of thing. I mean, certainly in the FFPC where it's, tight end premium, you can't be relying on Musgrave for your tight end one.
Corey Walters hanging out in the YouTube chat. How long is Tucker Kraft out? That's an interesting question you bring up right now. As far as we can tell in Green Bay, Tucker Kraft has resumed individual activities. I don't believe he's going to play in the preseason game tomorrow, but what the Packers have told us from day one, Matt, he's going to be ready for week 1, and that's another thing we have to consider when we're talking about potentially drafting Luke Musgrave or starting Luke Musgrave, because we know Tucker Kraft, when Musgrave was hurt last year, he looked pretty good. And when you have a backup tight end that looks that good, you're going to find a way to get him involved in the offense, even when the starter is healthy.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the whole tight end position for the Packers is a mystery and not much different than the wide receivers. The one thing I can say about Tucker Kraft is I know he likes craft beer.
Tucker Kraft, huge fan of Cocoon Brewery. Is it De Pere or Ledgeview? What should I be saying? De Pere
I mean, it's sort of a horse apiece. It's technically Ledgeview. We're in the town of Ledgeview, but I mean, most people have heard of De Pere at least.
It's for all the national audience watching tonight. It's basically Green Bay. It's not very far from Green Bay, so we're right up
Suburban Green Bay.
Suburban Green Bay. Yes, that's where we're broadcasting tonight. The beer is fantastic. The fantasy football chatter is immaculate. Let's keep going. We'll shift away from the Packers here. Let's look at the Indianapolis Colts as we break through to our national coverage here in Fantasy Flash. Shane Steichen, the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, and Anthony Richardson and the starters are going to play a series or two, according to Fox59.com. This is going to be the first time, Matt, that we see Anthony Richardson in an NFL game since he had his season ended in Week 5 in 2023 against Tennessee. Now, when he was healthy as a rookie, man, did the legs look good and the arm look just as good or better. Richardson, 96 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns, 25 for 136 and 4 touchdowns in 2023 in total. He looked like the quarterback one last year. Now, he had shoulder surgery in the offseason. How he looks after that surgery is going to be something we're going to be concerning ourselves with. We would like to think he's healthy based on everything we've heard at Indianapolis. He's going to be ready to go. I think if there was one thing we would concern ourselves with Anthony Richardson is that he said he's not going to change the way he plays the game. He's going to keep running the way he does. He's going to keep taking the licks the way he does, which is baked into his ADP right now. If we look at Anthony Richardson's ADP, he is going off the board at quarterback 5 at the 606. This is behind I screwed this up. 606. So he's behind the top 5 quarterbacks right now, Matt. You are paying a premium to get this player on your team. However, this could be a league-winning type player. How would you handle Anthony Richardson in your fantasy drafts this year?
Yeah, well, I'm glad I don't draft till Labor Day so that I'm going to have a little opportunity to see him.
But hold on. If you were drafting right now, knowing what you know, it sounds like you would be staying away until you see something, right?
Yeah, I'm a little leery. I mean, I don't think we saw really enough. Sure, what we saw looked great last year, but I mean, pretty small sample size, and I'd like to see some more. I mean, and their offensive weapons aren't exactly, they're not like the Packers or the Dolphins. They don't have the wide receiving core that some of these other teams do, that he has so many different options, and he will have to rely on his legs in order to meet his, your fantasy expectations. And if that's more likely he's going to get hurt, so it's a double-edged sword. Everybody wants a running quarterback. I get that. I do too. But I mean, I would prefer he had a few more options to throw to and didn't have to run as often. And, that's a little rich for my blood up, putting him in the sort of the top 5, top 6 quarterbacks. Yeah. I think for me, I would fade him. But I get that the upside is there, and hey, you might end up winning the league because you took the risk.
Right.
It's sort of a risk reward and what you're comfortable with on draft day. And I guess I'm not comfortable with the risk for Richardson.
Matt, let's do this. Let's play a would you rather. We do this sporadically on the show. Would you rather draft Anthony Richardson or X quarterback here? We'll go through it right now. All these players are going after Richardson in ADP in the FantasyPros Championship right now. Let's find out how down you are on Richardson. Would you rather draft Anthony Richardson or CJ Stroud?
Stroud.
Would you rather draft Anthony Richardson or Kyler Murray?
Murray.
Would you rather draft Anthony Richardson or Joe Burrow?
Think Richardson.
Now we're at Richardson. Okay. Would you rather draft – hold on. Would you rather draft Anthony Richardson or Dak Prescott, who still doesn't have a contract with the Cowboys?
Yeah, I'm not a Dak guy, so I would go with Richardson.
Final one, just to make sure. Would you rather draft Anthony Richardson or our hometown savior, Jordan Love?
Richardson.
Richardson over Love. Okay, all right, there you go. I think that's where we're falling in on the Richardson talk. Let's keep it in the NFC North here. TJ Hawkinson. So this is a guy that we've been wondering what the story is with him and how soon he's going to play. Dan Graziano, who covers the NFL for ESPN, spoke with the Vikings and said they believe that they're going to have Hawkinson available in the first half of the 2024 season. Hawkinson had his season in 2023 come to an end in Week 16 with the torn ACL. Now, before he tore his ACL, 95 catches, 960 yards. Those were both career highs, okay? Before he tore his ACL, he also had 5 touchdowns there. 6 to 9 months is what we're normally looking at for an ACL tear. Hawkinson is going to be 9 months removed from the ACL tear in late September. This is a player that people are down on, obviously, this year, but a player that could make all the difference when the money weeks come in. Week 15, Week 16, Week 17, Matt Walters. When you look at Hawkinson and the fact if you want him on your team right now, you do have to sink a pick in the 9th round to get him. 9-10 is where he's going, tight end 14. Is that low enough for you right now to take a chance on Hawkinson, or is he still going too high given the ACL tear?
It's awfully enticing. I mean, I guess it would depend on how the draft fell to me before that point. I mean, if if I had a pretty well-rounded team, maybe I had, another tight end in mind. Either I already had a tight end or I had one late to sort of fill in.
That's what I'm getting
somewhat
at.
comfortable about.
Yep.
The upside for Hawkinson is clearly there. I mean, he was lighting the world on fire last year, and it'd be great to have. So I think I would be awfully enticed by that.
All right, so let's do this. Let's talk about, obviously, if you have an elite guy, one of the top 6 or 7 guys, Hawkinson is kind of an afterthought. If you grab him, great, you can flex him out in the FFPC with the dual flex. But what happens if you wait until the 5th round to take Jake Ferguson? What happens if you wait until the 6th round to take Njoku or Brock Bowers? What happens if you wait until the 7th round to take Dallas Goedert? In those situations, would you be okay with TJ Hawkinson as your backup, or would you want somebody else in the, I guess, you and I both agree it depends upon team construction, but how do you handle TJ Hawkinson based on what you already have at tight end on your specific team?
I mean, with the guys that you just mentioned, I think, I would be comfortable hanging on to them and starting them for 4 to 6 weeks in the first part of the season, see how Hawkinson is, and then hope he comes back and he's back to where he was.
Right.
Certainly, with the tight end premium leagues, you got to have a great guy like that, and to have a solid tight end like a Ferguson, who clearly doesn't get the volume, but he gets a lot of red zone looks and touchdowns. That's kind of outside of those 5 guys. That's all you're left with in the tight end category anyway. So, yeah.
We should be completely clear here. Jake Ferguson, University of Wisconsin Badger graduate. So you and I have a soft spot for him, for whatever it's worth.
But I mean, the same thing goes true with the other guys you mentioned. Even Bowers, which maybe doesn't – he's certainly a touted prospect, but he might not be in a great situation.
Yeah, how do you handle a guy like him in redraft this year where we don't know what's going on, and it's not like he landed in a plum location, and the fact that he's going as, whatever it was, tight end 8 or whatever, fade, target, or otherwise for you this year?
Yeah, he's a little bit of a fade, the rookie tight end thing. It just doesn't always work out, or almost never works out. And, not a great situation. It doesn't seem like worth the squeeze at that position for sure.
I think it's one of those things where it's like if you're playing in a national tournament, you might want to take a chance on Bowers. But if you're in a closed 12-team league or you're just trying to beat 11 other teams, it gets a little bit more dicey with Bowers this year. I can't believe I'm bringing this up. August 9th, 2024, the year of our Lord. Quentin Johnston, mother of God. Let's talk about it. Jeremy Fowler from ESPN says the Chargers, quote, have major plans for Quentin Johnston this year. Now, for all of us laymen who are looking at the Chargers situation from the outside, look like he's an afterthought. He's just the guy you ignore. Even in best ball leagues, you can ignore. However, Jeremy Fowler visited Chargers camp. He says he's part of their plans this year. And according to Fowler, Greg Roman, who is the new offensive coordinator for the Chargers, is hoping to manufacture opportunities, i.e. slot, get some stuff easy for him over the middle where he can create after he catches the ball. We love catches. We love targets as high-stakes fantasy football players in full PPR leagues. Roman said there's no reason to overreact to the drops in practice that we've seen from Quentin Johnston this year. And if you want to invest in him, Matt, he's super cheap. He's basically free at this point. He is not going super high in any drafts right now. And if the Chargers want to utilize him in this way, obviously he makes some sense as a late-round dart throw. My question to you, is he worth that late-round dart throw? Is he worth more than that late-round dart throw based on what Greg Roman is saying about him, or are you still continuing to ignore him in year 2 of his NFL career?
This is a really good question. It's a hard question, too. I mean, it sort of seems like preseason noise to me that I'm not sure I believe. Obviously, the Chargers have, 300-plus targets to find a home for?
No Mike Williams, no Keenan Allen, no Gerald Everett, no Austin Eckler. Their top 4 target getters all gone.
Yeah, but it just feels like, they're going to run the ball, and then they're going to run the ball again, and then they're going to run the ball again. I mean, if Roman was talking about how he was going to get handoffs to Johnson, I might be more interested in him, but I don't think that's what he's talking about. I mean, if your name's not Palmer on that offense in a receiving scenario, I'm not sure that I want anything to do with you on I'll be a year late on Johnson, I guess.
Yeah, because like a lot of people were a year early on him and they paid the price. And now I'm like, okay, even if I envision the ceiling for Quentin Johnston this year, I'm not seeing a scenario in which I'm ticked off that I missed out on. Maybe in best ball, maybe, but even then, I'm just kind of like, whatever. I'm out. Okay, sticking in the same division. Antonio Pierce, head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, said that wide receiver Jacoby Myers has been, quote, lights out in training camp so far. Talking with Jeremy Fowler from ESPN, he said that Myers has really stepped up his game. Last year, if you remember, 71 catches, 807 yards, and 8 touchdowns. He played on 72% of the Raiders snaps last year. That was a career high as well. Whether you're talking about his time in Las Vegas, New England, wherever, that was a career high. Now, in 4 years in New England, he was basically the slot guy. But basically in Las Vegas, he's been an outside guy opposite Davante Adams. He had a great start to 2023, tapered off a little bit after that. And I don't know about you, Matt. I don't hold high hopes for the Vegas offense this season. And we don't know who the quarterback is going to be. Is it going to be Gardner Minshew? Is it going to be Aiden O'Connell? We don't know. When you look at Jacoby Myers in the Fantasy Pros Championship ADP, when you're looking for a receiver, Jacoby Myers is currently going at, God bless it, why can I never find this when I need it on the clock? Wide receiver. It's not the Cocoon wireless, which has been immaculate today. Jacoby Myers, wide receiver 56 at the 11-12. I want to be in business with Myers at that point. He is a wide receiver 5 at that point. He is a guy I can plug into my lineup and expect 8 to 10 to 12, maybe even 14 points on any given week. Ceiling is not that high, but the floor is very high. I like Myers at that price point. How do you feel about him this season?
Yeah, I mean, he sort of did flame out of New England, and it didn't go off for him there. But I mean, he's just slowly kind of made himself relevant over the last couple seasons, and I agree with you. At that price, I guess there's other guys in that area. Maybe Jamison Williams is roughly in that area of town. Possibly you could take a flyer on Xavier Worthy, also in that maybe general ADP pool tier. If you're going to discuss who you'd rather have in that kind of area. But, like you said, Myers' floor is probably quite a bit higher than those guys.
Right.
So he's a pretty, solid wide receiver 5 to just get you through a bye week, and you're not, probably putting your championship on the line with him, but he gets you through a couple weeks.
When you talk about the floor being higher, obviously his floor is going to be higher at that point. When you talk about guys like Worthy and Jamison Williams, who brought up, whose floor is significantly lower than Myers, but their ceiling is higher. How do you feel about those players when you're trying to, at that point in the draft, where you're trying to swing for home runs, right? You're not trying to hit for contact. You're not trying to hit for singles or doubles. You want to make sure that you're getting players on your team that can be difference makers, that can separate yourself from the top third to the elite, to the 95th percentile, 96th percentile. How do you feel? And we'll just briefly talk about Jamison Williams and Xavier Worthy this year. In a contest like that, how do you feel about those players? You don't have to relate it to Jacoby Myers, but Williams and Worthy in a vacuum, how do you feel about them?
I mean, I'm actually pretty excited about both of them. I liked Williams a lot even last year. Obviously, what is he, injured at the beginning of the year? Or
right.
Suspended
and then the gambling suspension. Yeah, yep, absolutely.
So he had a false start on his career, but their offense, it's like a situation where Kansas City and Detroit have great offenses, and Oakland certainly doesn't, or Las Vegas.
Right.
I mean, Kansas City clearly needs a guy like Worthy and Williams. They need another threat outside St. Brown as well. So, I'm excited about both those guys. Between the two, I mean, it's a little hard to put all your baskets in a rookie that you really haven't seen do anything. And so I maybe would lean a little bit Williams right now. But, I sort of feel like whoever Patrick Mahomes is throwing the ball to, I certainly want a slice of that as well.
Right. Is this because one of the things that fantasy players have to figure out for this year is this the year of Jameson Williams? We have had, people were calling him, I can't remember who this was, and forgive me if I'm not attributing it properly. Whiskey Bill is what they were calling him because they wanted to not talk about Jameson Williams on podcasts where people were vaulting him up. So they called him Whiskey Bill to try to mask his name a little bit.
That's a Jeff Mans technique.
Maybe it is a Jeff Mans thing, and maybe Jeff
I don't know if it was him, but he does.
It might have been him. I don't know. It could have been. Yeah, but that is his milieu. This is what he does. So when it comes to Jameson Williams, we've heard this the last couple of years, and maybe this is the year. Maybe the type of people that were excited about him the last, in 2023, 2022, are out on him this year, and that vaults him up. You look at his ADP in the FantasyPros Championship right now. Wide receiver 44 at the 1207. This is a very palatable spot for Jameson Williams this year. And I know that Gibbs is ahead of him. I know that Amon-Ra St. Brown is ahead of him. I know Sam Laporta is still ahead of him. But when you're trying to win $1 million, these are the types of players after the 10th round that you want to try to target to help you win the $1 million. So I'm totally with you on Williams this year. We'll go to let's go to some emails here tonight. We'll go to Corpus Christi, Texas here for you first, Matt. This is Art. What's up, guys? Are you still drafting Tyrone Tracy over Eric Gray after last night? That is Art in Corpus Christi, Texas. Now, I'll bring this up because I was doing another show last night while the game was going on, so I couldn't follow it totally. I'll say this right now. Tyrone Tracy started last night. He was running with the ones. Tyrone Tracy ended up with 0 catches, 0 targets. He had 5 carries for 26 yards, including a 12-yard carry. Eric Gray came in after Tyrone Tracy. Eric Gray had 4 carries, 52 yards, 2 touchdowns, including a 48-yard scamper. And, oh, by the way, Eric Gray, 4 catches for 46 yards. Nobody I've talked to, Matt, is sold on Devin Singletary being this perfect Saquon Barkley replacement. Why wouldn't he? So we have to look at the guys behind the guy. The guys behind the guy are Gray and Tracy. To me, Tracy running with the ones last night is more important than Gray piling up the yardage against the backups and the third stringers. So I'm more inclined, even more reinforced to be drafting Tyrone Tracy after last night than Eric Gray. How do you feel about the situation when you're looking at drafting the injury away type guys in your FFPC main event drafts, trying to get the guy behind the guy in Singletary?
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally on board with you. I think, he probably just had his best fantasy game of the season last night and,
right.
Might not see the field again. So I don't, unless for some reason we hear something next week where he's, running with the twos or something and he's leapfrog in the depth chart somehow, I don't really see that happening. I think, you start, sure, you didn't get all the looks, but you're probably out of the game, faster because they don't want you to get you injured. They know you're
right.
the number 2. So they're getting you in, getting a look, getting you out. I mean, how about Carlos Washington Jr.? He had 16 carries for 25 yards and a touchdown. Are we going to lose our minds over him? I don't, we can't get too crazy.
This is a good addendum to that question. When you watch preseason football, you're more reserved, taking it in more as a fan because you're not taking anything super seriously what you see in the preseason, right?
Yeah, I just don't think you can. I mean, you watch these ADPs, they'll go flying around. Like some receiver will have 2 touchdowns, and like I think Tank Dell again had a touchdown tonight.
He did, yes.
Oh, watch his ADP, and okay, but they got a lot of other great options there. So you don't want to overvalue something that happened before the defense even knew what they were doing in preseason game number 1.
Let's talk. We've been talking about late round picks. What about the top of the draft, Matt? Like a lot of people are going to get a top 2, top 3, even top 4 pick, and they might be faced with the scenario of drafting CeeDee Lamb because of the back and forth that's going on in Dallas between Lamb's representation and Jerry Jones right now. And Don in Santa Clara, California writes, how does the contract stalemate affect how you're drafting CeeDee Lamb? Thank you. That is Don in Santa Clara. We appreciate that, Don. Matt, I'm going to be honest with you right now. I think CeeDee Lamb is going to have a fantastic year. I really do. When push comes to shove, I think he's going to have a banner 2024. That said, if I have a 102 or a 103 pick, it's tough for me to say, yeah, I want Lamb over Breece Hall, over Bijan Robinson, over Tyreek Hill. I think you can make a strong case for any one of those guys who is certainly happy with their contract right now and certainly happy with what's going on with their team, rather than CeeDee Lamb, where, again, we don't know exactly when he's going to come in. And, oh, by the way, if he does come in, he's already behind the 8 ball with all the players that have been undergoing training camp in the preseason thus far. If I have the 102 or 103, I'm looking elsewhere other than CeeDee Lamb. I have the 105 or the 106 and Lamb is still out there, still hopping aboard the Lamb train. How do you feel about CeeDee Lamb right now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm of the mind of, you do not want to miss on your first round draft pick.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and certainly, if you draft CeeDee Lamb anywhere in the first round, you probably didn't miss. But the vibes aren't good. He's just not there. It just does kind of feels angry. It also feels just like, to me, Dallas is kind of in the decline. I don't. Sure, he'll probably have a great statistical or a very solid statistical season, but I mean, I would much rather have, I think, any of those guys you just mentioned, Bijan, Tyreek, Breece,
because of the safety,
like sure
right?
things. Yeah, absolutely.
I think that it's fine to, again, you're swinging for a double, but you're swinging for a double in the first half of the first round. Swing for the home runs later when it doesn't count. If you strike out, that's fine. But yeah, I'm with you. I think that I'm not fading Lamb. I'll look at him as a value at a certain point in the draft, but I'm not drafting him at sticker anymore.
I don't understand the argument that CeeDee Lamb could be the number 1 pick in the draft. I don't.
I mean, I get, and that's fine. And I get the argument that he could, but the longer, and I'll say this to the CeeDee Lamb truthers out there, the longer this thing drags out, the less I see that happening this year, because you just can't just walk into camp or into the regular season or into week 3 of the preseason and be like, yeah, I'm ready to go. No, you can't do that. You're not in football shape. We've seen it time and time again. Soft tissue injury hits, and then it sets you back, and then we're constantly waiting as fantasy owners. Oh, now he's overcome that. Now he's past it. I don't want to do that. My players are going to get hurt enough in the regular season. I don't want to have to draft these guys that are coming late into the game that are already dealing with something. Not to say that CeeDee Lamb is dealing with something, but I think that history would prove that guys who come in late into camp are going to be dealing with something coming into the regular season. Okay.
Yeah.
Chargers running backs, Matt. Here we go. Wayne in Minneapolis. What's your favorite Chargers running back at sticker price this year? Sticker price on the Chargers running backs as of 3 days ago, according to Fantasy Mojo. Gus Edwards, 1009. J.K. Dobbins, 1104. Kamani Vidal, 1302. According to the latest Chargers depth chart, which we should take with a grain of salt, Jim Harbaugh has listed Edwards and Dobbins as co-starters, Kamani Vidal as 6th string running back. 6th string. A guy that people were drafting in the 8th and 9th round earlier in the season. Kamani Vidal is 6th string with the Chargers. Take that for what it's worth. But
Who's
Edwards
4 and 5?
Right. Edwards and Dobbins are listed as the starting, the co-number ones right now. None of these guys are going in the single-digit round. You have free reign here, Matt. What are you doing with the Chargers running backs this season?
I mean, I guess at the current sticker price, it's a tricky one. I mean, at the sticker price, I think they're all fairly good value, to be honest with you. I mean, if
you don't like any of them.
Well,
none of them are a target for you.
I mean, I want to I'd take them all, but again, it's like sort of the Packers receivers thing, right? Like they're going to run the hell out of the ball in Los Angeles, but are they going to share it? Is it going to, I mean, I probably would take Gus Edwards, force me to take one of them right now. I think I would take Gus Edwards, but I like Kamani's overall probably prospects. He could be a home run type guy at that, in the 13th round or whatever you just said his ADP was.
Yeah.
He probably is the best pick, but I mean, I guess if he's 6th on the depth chart. I don't know what that means.
Well, 6th on the depth chart. Again, this is the Chargers depth chart. This is Jim Harbaugh, a known crazy person. So
Right.
I don't put any. I shouldn't say I don't put a whole lot of. I don't put a whole lot of stock. It's not like I don't put any stock into it. Kamani Vidal, if you look at history for rookie running backs drafted on day 3 for redraft value, hasn't been great. But every situation is different. This could be a Vidal year, especially considering you have Edwards ahead of him, who is a plotter. He's an accumulator. He's not a dynamic running back. He fell into the end zone a lot last year because of the offense he was in. J.K. Dobbins, mother of God. I get excited about J.K. Dobbins literally every single year since the early 70s, okay? When has that panned out? It's never panned out.
Never.
So I think the thing is with the Chargers running backs, you can make a strong case that Vidal should not be targeted this year. However, given the 2 guys in front of him, I think you can make a case that Vidal is a nice pick in the 13th round after those top 2 guys are off the board.
I mean, not a lot of risk involved with the 13th round pick, and you know, certainly upside is there. So yeah, it's probably the pick.
Rubio in the YouTube chat right now. I don't know about you guys. I'm giving Dobbins one more chance. You know, if I had a nickel for every time I've said I'm giving Dobbins one more chance, I would not be doing this show. I would be retired. I'd be living in Fiji right now, and it would be great. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm surprised I can draft anyone anymore. I'm always like, I'm never picking that guy again.
That's the thing. Isn't that one of the toughest things to get around for redraft leagues where some guy burns you and you don't want to take him even at a 6th-round discount the following year? It's tough, man.
I mean,
it's really tough.
His name's Kyle Pitts.
Kyle Pitts has been the name for so many people. And by the way, again this year too.
Yeah.
What are the Kyle Pitts truthers saying this year? It's no Arthur Smith. It's Kirk Cousins. You know, like there's a story you can tell yourself every single year. And by the way, I may be one of those Kyle Pitts truthers this year. I might be drafting him a lot. We'll see what
It's
happens.
starting to sound good to me too, and I hate it.
Very good. Yeah. Let's go to Brian in Poughkeepsie, New York. Happy Friday, gentlemen. Should I be buying into the Marvin Harrison hype right now? Appreciate it. That is Brian in Poughkeepsie, New York. Now, Matt, before you answer this, I'm gonna put this out here. Marvin Harrison, a rookie wide receiver who has never caught one pass in the NFL, who has never played one down in the National Football League, wide receiver 9 at the 206 in drafts right now. He is going as a mid-second round pick. We don't know what this guy is capable of. I'm obviously painting you in the corner here. This is a leading question, Your Honor. Marvin Harrison at the 206. Are you on board with that hype, or are you finding somebody else to draft at that point?
I want to be on board with that hype. I'm not sure. I mean,
But you're not. But you're not
No.
on board with it, is what you're saying.
I mean, I got to talk my way through it. I guess I'm sort of on the Kyler Murray bandwagon this year. So if I'm on the Murray bandwagon, I sort of have to be on the Harrison bandwagon by default. You know, otherwise,
Well,
what's
you
going
could
on there?
You could be on the Murray bandwagon and the McBride bandwagon and say, I want Michael Wilson late, or I want Greg Dortch late, right? You don't necessarily have to be on Harrison. Again, in the mid-second round, man, that's high.
It's high, exactly that. And I mean, I'm trying to take a quick look to see who else is like in that area.
Well, let's do a would you rather with Marvin Harrison here, right? Who's going at the 206 right now in FFPC Fantasy Pros drafts. Would you rather have Marvin Harrison or Drake London?
I mean, the hype around Drake London is off the charts right
That's
now.
another hyped up guy, yeah, for sure.
That's like, yeah, either or. You might be super happy. You might be really pissed.
Well, I'll tell you this. Let's go higher. Let's go with a guy who's still going higher than Marvin Harrison, but he's hurt right now. Would you rather draft Marvin Harrison or Puka Nacua?
Oh, Puka. I didn't. That's not my answer. I think I would take Harrison in that scenario.
Okay.
I mean, it seems like Harrison's gonna have to be the alpha there. And from everything I've read and heard, like it sounds like he's really killing it in camp.
Yeah.
And I mean, hopefully Cup's back, and Nacua has more he's not going to have the biggest opportunity that he did last year.
Right.
So I would favor Harrison in that one.
I am Team Cup all the way, and it's really painful for me because I did an industry mock draft like last week or 2 weeks ago with Fantasy Alarm where I had the 12th pick and I took Nakua, and I'm like, and I can't defend it to this day. I'm like, oh, Bulky, why'd you take Nakua there? I don't know, because I like Cup way more in the mid-third round than I do Puka Nakua in the late first or early second. So that's where you stand on that. What about Marvin Harrison or Devontae Adams? So a guy who's been at the pinnacle before here in Green Bay and Las Vegas, or Marvin Harrison, the rookie, the unproven rookie.
I mean, I would go Adams, I guess.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Even though I don't love the quarterback situation, obviously, for Adams, but it just seems like he's definitely proven commodity. He's done it with everybody, and it feels like a more comfortable answer.
What about Chris Olave, a guy who's going later than Devontae Adams? Chris Olave, the number one receiver for New Orleans. Would you rather have him or Marvin Harrison this year?
I think here I'd go Harrison just because, again, like it just seems like everything on New Orleans is just kind of scary right now.
It is scary, right? Yeah, like running back is unknown, wide receiver is kind of unknown, tight end for sure is unknown, quarterback is being drafted way late. We don't know what the Saints are capable of. This year. Or I should say, we don't know what the Saints are incapable of this year. They could be really, really bad. I kind of like Rashid Shaheed. I mean, I know he's been dealing with the hamstring injury this week, but I kind of liked him later until this injury. We'll see what happens with that. Final question for you, Matt. Derek in Avon Park, Florida. Who is going to end up being the leading pass catcher not named Garrett Wilson for the Jets and Aaron Rodgers this season? Derek in Avon Park, Florida. We appreciate your input. Garrett Wilson is the unquestioned number one pass catcher. After that, we have Mike Williams. We have Malachi Corley. We have Tyler Conklin. We have Breece Hall. There are a lot of pass catchers for the Jets this year. Let's take fantasy out of the equation. Who's going to have the second most catches on the Jets this year, Matt? Is it going to be one of those guys I mentioned? Is it going to be somebody else? How do you see this unfolding?
I mean, it should be Breece Hall, I think. I mean, if I were the Jets coaching staff, that's the way I would work it, I think. But, unless Mike Williams can really come back from this injury and be, a safety valve for Rodgers, throw it up in the air when he's in trouble type of thing. But, I mean, it's going to be Breece Hall.
Let me ask you this. Last year for Breece Hall, he had 76 catches. If I were to set the over-under on catches for Breece Hall this year, again, not with Zach Wilson, not with anybody else, let's assume Rodgers is healthy all season. Let's set the over-under at 76. Do you go over or under 76 catches for Breece Hall in 2024 with Rodgers at the helm?
Probably under.
How far under? Is it close, or is it like bulky? Why'd you set it at 76? This guy's going to barely scrape 60.
I'll say 62. I mean, I think
62,
Rodgers will just he wants to push it a little more than that. Rodgers is an interesting character, of course, and we've seen a lot of him. But, I think that he's going to want to prove that he can really still sling it. And, checking down to the running back is not going to fit in his, let's say, his view of himself.
Let's do this. I know I said final question. Let's do one final question. Let's say, we know what Christian McCaffrey's dealing with right now. He's not going to play in the preseason. Hopefully he'll be ready for week 1. Rank your top 3 running backs this year, Matt Walters. I'm assuming it's Robinson, Hall, and McCaffrey. What order would you put them in if you're drafting tonight, August 9th, 2024? And you can do that, by the way, for anybody watching in the FantasyPros Championship. We'll have drafts going all the way until 12:30 Eastern time tonight. Matt Walters, how would you rank those top 3 running backs this year?
Jeez. Yeah, I wish that McCaffrey didn't have that injury. He's got those issues. I had him on my team last year, and he obviously was awesome, right? So it's really hard to not choose him, but it is still a young man's game. And I mean, I think that the Jets are going to come out hard. They're going to they're going to be a good team. I might go Brees, Bijan, McCaffrey. I mean, I know that's not going to be – that's
Hall, Robinson, McCaffrey, that's how you'd have it right now.
Yeah. I mean –
follow-up question.
Not consensus, I get, but
no, I get no. It's fine. That's fine because one of the things, and you know this from playing in high-stakes fantasy football for years, consensus draft ADP often does not replicate itself on how the season ends. But if you had the number one overall pick in an FFPC main event, and I know you're drafting the FFPC main event coming up in a couple of weeks here, but if you had the FFPC number one overall pick, who are you taking? Let's assume you're drafting by yourself. You don't have to sell the pick on anybody else to Steve or Brian or anybody else that you might be drafting with, right? You're drafting by yourself. Who do you
or
take
Rick. I just want to mention Rick just because I don't
or
want
Rick,
him to
or Rick. Yes, exactly.
Be the only guy who didn't have his name said.
That's a good point. 101 right now. Let's say you're drafting in 20 minutes. Who are you taking?
Well, I guess I'll go with Brees. I just ranked him number one out of those three. Yeah.
You're the man. I appreciate that. And by the way, I would probably agree with you at this point. I often say when I'm asked questions like this, ask me again the next day. I could change my answer. But as of right now, given what's going on with McCaffrey, given his age, given that offense, and given what's going on in New York, I think I'd be more inclined to draft Brees Hall over Christian McCaffrey, over CeeDee Lamb, over Tyreek Hill, over Bijan Robinson right now. Brees Hall had a fantastic season last year, playing in a really bad offense. Imagine what he can do with a real quarterback this year, and I think that's what we need to look towards for 2024. You are looking towards 2025 with the NFL draft coming your way in Green Bay. Cocoon Brewery, my God, what an awesome place to have this show tonight. I'm loving it. I'm loving the beer. I'm loving the ambiance. Hopefully everybody on the show who is watching it on YouTube or X or Facebook truly captured what was going on here. It is a party. It is a fantastic place to hang out. And certainly as we get closer to the NFL draft, you're going to be busier. But this is going to be an awesome place for anybody who's watching this nationwide or worldwide to come to Cocoon Brewery here in De Pere /Ledru, Wisconsin, to hang out. It's going to be an awesome place to hang out.
Yeah, we're totally pumped. We even got plans to expand the parking lot by next spring, so there'll be more room for people to come and spread out, and hopefully the weather is as beautiful as we can make it in April in Wisconsin.
Right, exactly. Cocoon Brewing on Facebook, Cocoon Brewing on Instagram is where to follow it. Matt, this was tremendous. We got to make this an annual thing or a yearly thing.
I love it.
At some point. This was so much fun tonight. Thank you so much for hanging out for the entire duration and then some of the show tonight. We will be in touch. And listen, I know you guys didn't win the $500,000, as I found out a little before we went onto the air tonight. But who's to say you guys can't win the million this year in the FFPC main event? Good luck there. Good luck in drafting season. We'll talk to you again real soon.
Thanks a lot.
That is Matt Walters, ladies and gentlemen, the co-owner, the co-proprietor, the co-brewmaster, the co-host of tonight's program. Cocoon Brewing in De Pere, Wisconsin. CocoonBrewing.com is where to check it out. This is totally legit hardcore analysis. I want to do a show here every year. The ambiance was great. Hanging out with all the people that came out tonight who are fantasy football drafters. I loved it, and keep it coming. We will keep you in the know and keep all the hardcore FFPC fantasy football analysis coming going forward here, as we will be live next Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time with a pair of guests. That's right, a pair of guests. We'll have FF Mastermind from the from the FFPC Pros vs. Joes, ffmastermind.com, Michael Nazarek at FF Mastermind on the X. He will join us for the first half hour next Friday from 10 until 10:30. And then in our Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship preview, 10:30 to 11, the 2023 Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship main event overall winner, Randy Lavender, will join us in our KFFSC preview. And by the way, speaking in the KFFSC, go to kffsc.com. The Bull Rush League that is going off Sunday night. The first fast draft of the KFFSC season is going off Sunday night. Be sure you're participating in that. Take your shot at a $25,000 grand prize and take your shot competing against many of the people that come on as guests on this show, that people that have participated in FFPC over the years, participated in the KFFSC. That is where you want to be on Sunday night with the Bull Rush draft. Farrell told me to tell you that, but I'll be competing in the KFFSC main event this year as well. I want to thank Matt Walters. I want to thank Cocoon Brewing. I want to thank the FFPC, Rob Bryce, and, of course, each and every one of you. We'll be back next Friday. Michael Nazareth and Randy Lavender. Last night's High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network went live at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Anthony Servino from RotoWire and I chopped it up for 2 hours. That was a lot of fun. Watch that in case you missed it. And then next Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Dave Cabin from RotoViz will join me for the full 2 hours. That's going to be a lot of fun as well. Tuesday, RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown August edition. 2019 FFPC $500,000 winner Mike Pere will join me for a conversation on FantasyPros Championship drafts, FFPC main event drafts this coming season as well. What he's seen, what he's doing, that's going to be a lot of fun. 10 p.m. Eastern Time this coming Tuesday. FantasyPros Championship, FFPC main event, Superflex Best Ball Tournament over at myffpc.com. Can't emphasize this enough. This is where you want to be. You register for a league, boom, you're drafting right away. You are not waiting around. All these drafts are filling lightning fast. Go to myffpc.com. Not only are playing those redraft leagues, but the Empire Dynasty startups, the classic Dynasty startups. We have never had a Dynasty startup season like we've had with the FFPC this year. Everybody is still playing Dynasty year-round. Sign up for those drafts. They are popping off daily over at myffpc.com. Like this video. Subscribe to the channel. Comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and continue to get notified each and every time we go live, which will be this coming Tuesday, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Myself, Mike Pere, on the FFPC RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown. Come to Cocoon Brewing, cocoonbrewing.com, hospitality host for the 2025 NFL Draft. It's going to be a blast. I'm sure I'll be here more than one night. It was a fun time tonight. We're going to continue the party deep into the night here with my wife and all the other FFPC high-stakes players that have come out to support us tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Your weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Farrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
I will tell you right now, too, the one that my wife gave me, the Osmatarium. Oh, by the way, Matt Walters in the background right now. He's no longer relegated to brewing beer deep on a Friday night. He's going to hang out with me. The Osmatarium, the hazy IPA from Cocoon. Come hang at Cocoon Brewing, cocoonbrewing.com. Thank you so much for being a part of the show tonight. I'm going to hang out with Matt for the rest of the night. Hopefully we'll see you again in April for the 2025 NFL Draft. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching, and we will talk with you again on Tuesday.